Welcome to this explainer. Let's jump right into things today because we are tackling something incredibly fascinating, the science of déjà vu. Now, for a lot of us, this feels like, a really eerie, almost supernatural sensation. Maybe you've thought of it as a glitch in the matrix or some sort of hidden premonition. But I promise you, by the time we finish up today, we're going to transform that spooky mystery into a perfectly understandable and actually pretty cool quirk of your brain's memory systems. We're going to pull back the curtain and look at the actual machinery behind that crazy feeling. So, I want you to start by just thinking about your own experiences for a second. Have you ever had that sudden, totally unsettling feeling of walking into a completely new space? Or maybe you're just having a casual conversation with someone and boom, you get this overwhelming, absolute sense of recognition. You know for a pure fact that you haven't lived this exact moment before, and yet your whole body and mind are completely insisting otherwise. It's wild, right?
The strangest part about déjà vu isn't really the feeling itself. It's the sheer mismatch happening right inside your head. It's like a tug of war. One highly logical part of your brain is definitively saying, look, this is entirely new. But at the exact same time, another part is loudly arguing, no way, I've been here already. It's this exact internal contradiction where your hard facts and your gut feelings are literally clashing that makes déjà vu feel so incredibly eerie. Our minds simply do not like unresolved contradictions.
So let's actually define what's going on here. Déjà vu is definitely not just some weird feeling or a glitch in the fabric of reality. It is a very, very specific neurological signal. Basically, it's a sign that your brain's familiarity system and its reality check system have briefly fallen out of sync with each other. The feeling of familiarity is simply arriving before the explanation does. Once you anchor yourself to that one concept, the whole thing shifts from being supernatural to just a very human, very normal memory glitch. Which brings us to part one of our explainer, the fast pattern finder.
To really understand this glitch, we have to introduce our primary suspect, your brain itself. See, your brain doesn't experience the world as a clean, continuous, perfect video feed. Instead, it acts a lot more like a fast, survival-driven detective that is constantly scanning for patterns. And that brings us to a really crucial difference we often confuse. Familiarity is basically just a signal flag. It just waves and says, hey, this seems known. But memory? Memory is the whole shebang. It's a full, detailed file containing the who, the what, the where, and the when. In déjà vu, you're getting hit with that strong signal flag of familiarity, but you have zero access to the full file. And that is exactly why you feel so thrown off.
To see how this pattern matching works in the real world, just think about the everyday shortcuts your brain takes, like hearing just the first two notes of a song and instantly yelling, "Oh, I know this!" Or how your phone suggests a contact after you type just a couple of letters. Or even hearing a muffled clatter in the kitchen and immediately assuming, yep, someone dropped a spoon. Your brain is constantly jumping to conclusions based on partial input because, well, throughout human evolution, speed has usually mattered a whole lot more than perfection. Most of the time, this incredibly fast recognition is super helpful to us. Okay, but here is where the problem starts. Imagine you've got two internal workers in your mind. You've got the matcher, whose entire job is to notice resemblances and raise the flag, hey, this feels familiar. And then you've got the checker, whose job is to step in and ask, wait a second, do we actually have evidence for that? Most days, these two work perfectly side by side. But déjà vu happens when that overly eager matcher spots a pattern and completely beats the logical checker to the punch. The quick guess is super strong, but the checking system just hasn't had the time to confirm it yet. So let's look at exactly how that happens in part two, a problem of timing. We've zoomed out to look at the broad systems, but now we're going to zoom all the way in to the exact millisecond by millisecond culprit behind this whole experience. Because memory isn't just one neat filing cabinet that opens instantly. It's a sequential process. The brain first asks a very fast, very simple question. Does this feel known? Only after that does it move to step two. Okay, what exactly is it and why does it feel known? It totally separates the emotional burst of recognition from the factual source. Déjà vu lives exactly in that eerie, uncomfortable little gap between those two sequential questions. Think of it like finding a stamped letter. It's got the official post office stamp on it, so you know it's been processed, right? But it has no envelope, no address, and no sender. You can clearly tell it belongs to something real, but you have absolutely no idea how to place it. That is exactly what déjà vu is doing to your mind. Your brain is handing you the official stamp of familiarity, but the envelope holding the context, yeah, that's completely missing.
Let's ground this in a practical, real-world narrative. Imagine you're sitting down in a brand new chai dhaba. a place you know for an absolute fact you have never, ever visited before. But suddenly, as you're looking at the arrangement of the metal chairs, the specific placement of the counter, and maybe listening to the hum of the fan in the background, you get hit with this massive "I've been here" feeling. What's actually happening? Well, your brain has seen a pattern that heavily resembles other places you've been. The layout feels known before the specific details can be named. So the feeling is very real, but the interpretation is totally wrong.
Let's actually track how this builds, millisecond by millisecond. In a normal memory, both the feeling and the source arrive on your mental screen at the exact same time. But during a mismatch, look at what happens. At millisecond 1, a pattern is detected. At millisecond 2, the familiarity signal fires off. But the source retrieval, getting the actual memory file, stalls out. It's delayed. And because your brain loves using confidence as a shortcut, it blindly trusts that familiarity signal even without the context. This leaves you with a very strong feeling that has literally outrun its own explanation.
Which finally brings us to part 3, mystery solved. We've taken this supernatural feeling, we've examined the fast pattern matching, and we've found the tiny timing gap where things go slightly off the rails. To wrap up the case, let's just summarize this chain of events. First up, pattern recognition. The brain detects a similarity, giving you that vague, "this seems familiar" vibe. Then, the familiarity signal fires off quickly, and suddenly you're feeling, "oh, I know this." Next, source retrieval desperately tries to find the context, making you wonder, wait, where from? And finally, the crucial step, the mismatch. The context doesn't arrive in time, leaving you stuck with that eerie final thought. Why does this feel so certain? That exact chain, that is the absolute heart of deja vu.
So why does all this matter? Why take the time to learn the science behind a fleeting little feeling? Well, ultimately, it's about meeting a weird experience with clarity instead of confusion. When you know that deja vu is just your memory machinery producing a strong familiarity signal that outran its own explanation, it kind of stops being scary, doesn't it? You can actually tell the difference between a totally normal, everyday memory hiccup and, say, a more serious neurological pattern that might actually require a doctor's attention. It just gives you this really calm kind of power over your own mind.
Which leaves us with this final thought. You aren't just someone who experiences deja vu anymore. You're someone who actively understands the machinery behind it. So the next time your inner matcher beats your checker, the next time your internal systems fall briefly out of sync, and you get hit with that sudden wave of eerie recognition, how are you going to react? Are you going to fall back into the supernatural mystery of it all? Or will you just smile, knowing exactly what your incredibly fast, overly eager brain is up to? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope you walk away with a totally newfound appreciation for the complex, split-second timing happening inside your head every single day.